Picture this: a perfectly disciplined Roman soldier in gleaming armor, marching in perfect formation across vast battlefields.
Forward, Legionaries, to victory!
Conquering the known world with unstoppable military precision. This is the image that dominates our popular understanding of Roman legionaries, reinforced by countless movies, television shows, and historical documentaries. But how much of this romanticized vision actually reflects the messy, complex reality of life as a Roman soldier? Today, we're going to strip away the Hollywood gloss and examine what it was really like to be a legionary in ancient Rome, separating the enduring myths from the fascinating historical truth. The first major misconception we need to address concerns the famous Roman military discipline that has become legendary. Popular culture portrays Roman legions as perfectly synchronized machines, where every soldier moved as one and absolute obedience was guaranteed. While Roman military discipline was indeed impressive by ancient standards, the reality was far more nuanced and problematic than the myths suggest. Roman armies did maintain strict standards and brutal punishments for disobedience, including decimation, where every 10th man in a disgraced unit would be executed by his comrades. However, military records and historical accounts reveal numerous instances of mutinies, desertions, and insubordination throughout Roman military history. Roman soldiers were not emotionless automatons, but rather complex individuals who complained about their conditions, questioned orders when they seemed particularly dangerous or pointless, and sometimes refused to march or fight under circumstances they deemed unacceptable. The legions that crossed the Rubicon with Julius Caesar, for instance, had spent years developing personal loyalty to their commander rather than abstract devotion to military discipline. Many of these same soldiers later participated in the civil wars that tore the Roman Republic apart, choosing sides based on personal relationships, promised rewards, and regional loyalties rather than blind obedience to military hierarchy. Another persistent myth involves the supposed uniformity and standardization of Roman military equipment. Movies consistently show legionaries dressed in identical armor, carrying matching shields and weapons, looking like mass-produced soldiers from a military factory. Archaeological evidence tells a very different story about the diversity and evolution of Roman military equipment across different periods, regions, and economic circumstances. Early Roman soldiers were expected to provide their own equipment, leading to significant variations in quality and style based on personal wealth and regional availability of materials. Even during the height of the imperial period, when the state began providing more standardized equipment, substantial differences existed between different legions, time periods, and geographical locations. A legionary stationed on the Germanic frontier might have very different armor and weapons compared to his contemporary serving in Egypt or Britain. Local craftsmen, available materials, battlefield necessities, and regional preferences all influence the actual appearance and equipment of Roman soldiers. The famous larica segmentata, the segmented plate armor often associated with Roman legionaries, was actually used for a relatively brief period and primarily by certain units. Yet, it has become the archetypal image of Roman military equipment in popular culture. The reality of Roman military service was also far more diverse in terms of social background and motivation than commonly portrayed. The popular image suggests that legionaries were primarily disciplined Roman citizens motivated by patriotic duty and imperial glory. While Roman citizenship was indeed a requirement for legionary service during much of the empire's history, the social and economic backgrounds of these citizen soldiers varied enormously. Many legionaries came from the poorest classes of Roman society.
We have no choice but to join the Legion.
Viewing military service as one of the few available paths to economic advancement, steady meals, and eventual land grants upon retirement. Military service lasted for 25 years, an enormous commitment that shaped every aspect of a soldier's life. These men were not temporarily serving their state, but rather embarking on a career that would define their entire adult existence. They formed deep bonds with their fellow soldiers, developed skills beyond fighting, and often settled in the frontier regions where they had served rather than returning to their original homes. Many legionaries married local women despite official prohibitions, started families, and became integral parts of the communities where they were stationed, blurring the lines between conqueror and settler. The famous Roman battle tactics, particularly the manipular system and later the cohort system, are often presented as revolutionary innovations that guaranteed Roman military success. While Roman tactical flexibility and organizational structure were indeed significant advantages, these systems evolved gradually over centuries and were continuously adapted based on the changing nature of Rome's enemies and battlefield conditions. Roman military success stemmed not from rigid adherence to a single tactical doctrine, but rather from their ability to learn from defeats, adapt their methods to different enemies, and integrate useful innovations from the peoples they conquered. Roman legionaries were not inherently superior fighters compared to their Celtic, Germanic, or Persian opponents. Their advantage lay in superior logistics, better long-term strategic planning, more consistent training, and the ability to coordinate large-scale operations across vast distances. Individual Roman soldiers could, and frequently did, lose battles against supposedly barbarian warriors who possessed superior local knowledge, different fighting techniques, or simple numerical advantages. Roman military success was ultimately built on persistence, adaptability, and institutional continuity, rather than the mythical superiority of individual legionaries. The living conditions for Roman soldiers were harsh and often miserable, contradicting romantic notions about the glory of military service. Legionaries spent most of their time not fighting glorious battles, but rather engaging in backbreaking construction work, building roads, fortifications, and permanent camps. They carried enormous loads during long marches, slept in overcrowded conditions, and survived on monotonous rations consisting primarily of grain, supplemented with whatever they could forage, purchase, or obtain through requisition from local populations. Medical care was primitive by modern standards, and survival rates for wounded soldiers were discouragingly low. Disease claimed far more Roman soldiers than enemy weapons, with dysentery, malaria, and various infectious diseases regularly devastating entire legions. Soldiers faced constant threats from contaminated water, inadequate nutrition, exposure to extreme weather conditions, and the psychological trauma of witnessing and participating in extreme violence. The famous Roman military hospitals, while advanced for their time, could do little for soldiers suffering from serious wounds, infectious diseases, or the mental anguish that we would now recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder. The relationship between Roman legionaries and the civilian populations they encountered was also far more complex and troubling than popular depictions suggest. While Rome did bring certain benefits like improved infrastructure, legal systems, and trade networks to conquered territories, the process of conquest and occupation was often brutal and exploitative. Roman soldiers routinely engaged in activities that would be considered war crimes by modern standards, including the systematic plunder of conquered cities, the enslavement of captured populations, and the use of collective punishment against communities that resisted Roman authority. Legionaries were expected to support themselves partially through booty and plunder, creating strong incentives for aggressive behavior toward civilian populations. The famous Roman policy of allowing soldiers to keep whatever they could capture during successful campaigns meant that legionaries had direct financial interests in the destruction and exploitation of the communities they conquered. This system created a cycle of violence and exploitation that contradicts romanticized notions about Roman soldiers as noble protectors of civilization and order. The transformation of Roman military service over time also challenges static images of the legendary legionary. Early Roman soldiers were citizen farmers who served relatively brief terms before returning to their agricultural pursuits. The professional legions of the late Republic and early Empire represented a fundamental change in the nature of Roman military service, creating a class of career soldiers who were often more loyal to their commanding generals than to the Roman state itself. These professional armies eventually became dominated by non-Italian recruits, including many from recently conquered territories who viewed military service as a path to Roman citizenship and social advancement. By the late imperial period, the Roman military had evolved into something that would be barely recognizable to earlier generations of Roman soldiers. Barbarian foederati, foreign mercenaries, and Germanic tribal warriors served alongside traditional legionaries, bringing their own fighting techniques, equipment, and cultural practices into the Roman military system. The rigid distinctions between Roman and barbarian, civilized and savage, conqueror and conquered, became increasingly blurred as the empire evolved and adapted to changing political and military circumstances. Understanding the reality of Roman legionaries requires us to move beyond simplistic hero worship or vilification toward a more nuanced appreciation of their historical complexity. These were ordinary people caught up in extraordinary circumstances, shaped by the military, political, and social systems of their time, while also influencing and changing those same systems through their actions and decisions. They were neither the perfect soldiers of popular imagination nor simple victims of imperial oppression, but rather complex individuals navigating the challenges of military service, cultural conflict, and personal survival in one of history's most influential civilizations. The enduring fascination with Roman legionaries reflects our ongoing interest in questions about military service, imperial power, and the relationship between individual soldiers and the larger political systems they serve. By examining the myths and realities surrounding these ancient warriors, we gain valuable insights not only into Roman history, but also into the ways that military institutions, political power, and cultural memory interact to shape our understanding of the past and its continuing relevance to contemporary debates about warfare, empire, and the human cost of political ambition. So there you have it, the complex reality behind one of history's most mythologized military forces. Roman legionaries were neither the perfect warriors of Hollywood imagination nor simple victims of imperial oppression, but real people navigating extraordinary circumstances with all the contradictions and complexities that entails. What surprised you most about the reality of Roman military life? Did any of these revelations challenge your previous assumptions about ancient warfare? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue this fascinating discussion about how popular culture shapes our understanding of history. If you enjoyed diving deep into the reality behind historical myths, make sure to subscribe to HR History for more content that separates fact from fiction in our understanding of the past. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest explorations into the untold stories and hidden truths of history. Until next time, keep questioning what you think you know about the past, because the truth is often far more interesting than the myth.